Hi, I'm Guinevere. Let me introduce you to the Urban Village project. Mesmerized by the traditional village and its tight-knit relationship of the inhabitants, I want to invite this idea to Barcelona. As an attempt to raise the health and comfort level, my aim is to create a cooperative housing that offers a sense of belonging where private living is maximized by the chance to live in a community. A collective is built upon the same love for planting that the housing could encourage an exchange of knowledge to happen through the enjoyment of a social lifestyle such as gardening in the courtyard and chance of cooking in the shared kitchen. As a potential inhabitants, I researched on the profiles of several activists, biologists, and urban farmers to understand their lifestyle and interests. These people are the representative that I base my model project upon. The housing consists of a single flat share for 1 to 2 people and a family housing of 3 until 4 people, and tenants are divided into the short stay of a year or a long stay of 2 until 5 years. As seen in the map of Barcelona, the northern region of Horta Guinardó is where the untouched greenery is. Working with the idea to bring men close to nature, I choose the neighborhood of El Guinardó to build my housing project. Highlighted in beige is where the site is, in which hills and greenery naturally surrounded it. Highlighted in black is the proposed site. This map shows how several city plannings eventually causes decline to Guinardó's farmhouse, which was their original identity. Urbanization expanded from the south to the north. 19th century marked the start where Cerdo blocks are implemented to many neighborhoods. Here, Guinardó was planned to model a garden city district for a low-density neighborhood. Unfortunately, the reign of dictatorship replaced many farmhouses for taller buildings. The Cerdos block, highlighted in red, expanded from Example and stopped at the boundary of Guinardó, and the yellow is the transitional block in which blocks become rectangular and still with a chamfered edge. The block near my site may imitate one like Cerdos, however, they are not one as they are smaller in size. Being close to the hill, a big topographical changes that happens in the site would influence my design process. To start, I'm going to divide my design explorations into 3 chapters: the courtyards, the units and clusters, and finally the circulations. The first principle as I look at the void, question arises: how can I bring the community together? Aiming to create a gardening spot, I approached the project by looking at the voids in a typical Cerdas block, where I noticed that one semi-private centralized courtyard are shared between neighbors. Therefore, my explorations aims to create more courtyard in each clusters and half level of publics, semi-private, and private garden to invite more people to be involved without disturbing the privacy of the inhabitants. In this intuitive model, I start exploring ways to create a void at main entrance and a shared courtyard within the cluster. This is how the open space would be experienced from the ground and terrace. The images on the right suggest 2 kinds of voids created. First being the open social space at the main entrance, and secondly, the garden courtyard that are formed as a result of the arrangements of each clusters. Consequently, the size of each garden also varies in size, ready to cultivate for different types of plants. Looking at various types of gardening, inland is a traditional method. Alternatively, community of Huertas in the Sky uses a method of turning the rooftop green. The Urban Village project aims to support the community by providing a socially driven dwelling place and garden to plant for consumptions or to sell for their own additional income. I researched plant varieties that originates from Barcelona so that I could ensure the growth level of these plants. From there, I distribute the types of fruits and veggies to be planted inland at public courtyard and clusters courtyard, and finally, smaller plants and flowers at the roof and private gardens. Ricardo Boffel's work of La Muralla Roja in Spain become an inspiration. Here, the concept of Kasbah is used to make housing with usable rooftop. Kasbah itself is a Mediterranean Arab old town that are condensed as small buildings, almost like village. Within this project, the special organizations and interlocking of circulations become an important moment to create privacy as well as connections for communal programs. Secondly, the units and clusters are my form-finding explorations to find the desired arrangements of the inhabitants' houses. The first tests begin very intuitively. However, these 3 geometries later influence the appearance of my units. Gaps seen in the model further suggest the opportunity for connections to a shared space. There are 3 types of block repetitions used. These explorations shows how unit begin to unite as one group of cluster. Through repetitions accompanied by additive and subtractive method, these principles guide my design process. To avoid isolations, the 3rd chapter focuses on circulations in which I wanted to open more chances for neighbors to meet and interact. This intuitive model tests how I could organize unit with level of order and circulations connection. By having a connective circulations, neighbor could easily walk around the block and meet with their neighbors of different clusters. The size of the ramps also indicate the level of privacy. For example, the red indicate the neighbors, The orange are the circulations that can only be accessed by two shared houses, and finally the yellow is the private circulations of one house. I put my first design attempt on sawdust block. In this floor plan, the circulations begin to form as a result of the cluster's arrangement and gardening activities that surrounds it. As a cause of the irregular stacking of the units, each level also have different kinds of circulations with big buffer zone for people to sit and socialize. As I wanted to make gardening activities in the courtyard as well as raising the health and comfort level of the inhabitants, I conduct sun tests from 7 a.m. until 6 p.m. at several different spots around the block. The conclusions that I got from the test is that my housing are exposed to much daylight activities. To continue, I placed my design proposal on the appropriate side of El Guinardo. However, at this stage, things are still very regular that it does not blend into the contour. At the moment, these blocks only accommodate housings. So I look into the case studies of Hans Meyer, Friedhof Settlement Cooperative in Swiss, if perhaps there are distinguishing programs or ways of living that characterize the spirit of a cooperative. Here, Meyer designed a small town like the Garden City, in which housings are all standardized. However, communal programs are also provided such as shops, school, library, restaurant, and lecture hall. In the final proposal, I redesigned a bigger courtyard with a housing that starts to adapt to the topography. Two entrances enable access from the main road and the side, and to ensure privacy for the tenants, communal programs are placed in the front structures in which weekly activities would run in the library, lecture hall, and workshop as a free facilities for the tenants, while non-inhabitants are welcome to join with small fee. And adding to the visitors' experience, public gardens are available for visitors to harvest their own food that they ordered from the urban village restaurants. Finally, market sells the freshly pick fruits and veggies to add income for the long-stay tenants. With that, this housing project could be beneficial for the neighborhood of El Guinardo as this location is family-friendly. There are schools and pharmacies, but there have not been any build project that responds to the green movement. The circulations now also have been adjusted to fit perfectly as a continuous walkways, so the interaction level from ground to platform level also changes, while the rooftop now is transformed to harvest small plants. This is a zoom-in plan of one cluster in which we could see the communal activities happening in the central courtyard, and highlighted in red is the meeting point for important discussions and meetups. Next thing to look at is the shared kitchen that's highlighted in orange with the number 1, where neighbors of two separate units could get the chance to cook and dine together. Another type of shared kitchens are for the short-stay tenants where flatmates could cook together and build friendships as they come to learn. Besides staircases in the exterior, lifts are available for easier access, while in the unit's interior, attic staircases give access to private roof gardens. Finally, a private garden is distributed based on the level of intensity. As the short-term tenants only stay for a year, they could commit to a smaller space in the terrace while also participating gardening at the courtyard. For the long-stay tenants, roof garden or greenhouse garden are available to them. These are the types of fruits and veggies that are able to grow in Barcelona. I've researched about the times of months they grow as well as their planting methods. Each clusters would be planted with various types of plants. However, inland is reserved for the fruits and veggies, while the private garden is for the flowers and smaller plants. There are various types of housing units, the first being the ensuite room with shared kitchen to be rented for a year, while the other type of shared kitchen exists larger in the long-stay tenant's house where two typical units of one master and one single. Besides cooking, up to 8 people could gather and dine. The third unit type is located in the ground floor for an easier access. These are the priority units of 2 masters that could be reserved for elderly and disabled long-stay tenants. In their own individual bathrooms are made bigger in size and have handrails installed in bath for an easier use. These types also have biggest shared living room that includes hobby space and cooking and dining room. On the second floor, a unit type of 1 master and 2 single beds have their own separate guest living room, so they could still have their own privacy without the interruptions of incoming guests. The fourth type is the greenhouse, where their private garden is slightly different in size. However, the first and second floor have typical units with 1 master bed and a private kitchen for 2 separate groups of long-stay tenants. Finally, in the special case of the L-shaped house, the lower floor has 1 master bed for 1 group of people, while the second and third floor could be taken by a larger separate group with 1 master and 1 single bed provided. They could also enjoy a private roof garden. As a socially driven cooperative, central activities happen in the courtyard where people could garden together or gather with their neighbors to the meeting point. This shows a typical day in the life of the inhabitants. As people circulate around the housing block, they could also enjoy an open view to the hill. To conclude, this section cut shows the relationship of buildings to humans and its surrounding. To respond to the loss of identity of Guinardo's farmhouse and low-density housings, this urban living project aims to revive its identity by bringing the community together through a social lifestyle of gardening activities.